Hello, beautiful people. I'm Deja Riley, and you are listening to and watching Dose of Duality, the podcast where we dive into deep conversation, cultivating a sense of community around the state of coexistence. Now, Alicia isn't here with me. She is also shaking and moving in her new city. I'm shaking and moving in NYC and doing things with the babe, as you can see. Now, as I prepare for him to come, we have transitioned into getting ready for season 3. I cannot believe I'm saying that. And before we do so, we wanted to give you a few more bonus episodes because why not? We miss you. Our Dose of Duality fam is so very special to us, and we want to make sure that you get the fullness of all that we have to offer. Now, Dose of Duality started off as an idea for you to be able to receive Black, beautiful people in their fullness, in their expansiveness, in all their dynamic qualities, because none of us are just one thing. None of us just have one emotion. None of us are just confined to a box. In fact, we're stepping outside of the box and giving you a little bit of what we have traveled through on these past 2 seasons. Yes, we have completed 2 seasons. It feels so good to say that. But I wanted to take you on a little journey. Alicia did too. And so we put together this compilation of clips to show you a little bit of how we got here. So I hope you enjoy this. We'll be relaunching some episodes from season 1 in case you stepped in on season 2 right here on our YouTube page. But first, check this out. Now, who is Deja? Well, first of all, I'll give you my full government. It's Deja Riley Isidore Check. And my maiden name is Deja DeReal Riley, but I got Isidore Check from my lovely husband, Jimmy. We'll get into him a little bit later. But first, I want to let you know who I am. I am joy. I am love. I am a source of inspiration. I'm a motivator, an activator, a pillar of hope. I am light in motion, and I am enough. You know, so often our energy introduces us before we ever do. When we step into a room, when we enter into a new relationship, when people talk about us, it's all about energy. And the world may see something completely different with all the labels that are placed on you. But I like to introduce myself just as I did. Now, in terms of what the world sees, well, many may know me as a former dancer who's danced for the likes of Beyonce, Lady Gaga, J-Lo, Nicki Minaj, Trey Songz, and the list goes on and on and on. Others may know me as a Lululemon Global Ambassador, a Lululemon Studio Trainer, a fitness guru, so to speak. And then there are those that know me as Teddy Riley's daughter, a lover of music, a creative, and a true artist. But I choose not to be defined by any of those things because I am who I am. And also, if any of those titles were to ever drop, I would still just be me. I'm really sitting in everything that I am, and I'm ready to open up myself and open up my heart to everything that's ahead.
I'm a storyteller from the Bronx, born to Linda T. and Charles Lorenzo. Charles Lorenzo, God bless the dead. Pensacola, Florida, born and raised. My mother born in Dominica, very small island in the Caribbean. For those who don't know, you should go and visit. But not too many people visit because we're trying to keep our resources, you know. But you know, grew up on hip hop and found a way to make a way. I think with not much, but like a want to change the world and utilizing my art as the catalyst for that. for a lot of Black and brown folks, it's very hard to show up with love in environments that are not conducive to that.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
One. And also, right, because I love me a good and also. It's important. It's good, it's important.
Wait, Joe, my husband and I say also as well. So that's our thing. So also as well.
You get it. You know? It's and also we have a choice. We get to choose. And sometimes it's a consortium, but like you also get to be the person to set the precedent. And so anytime I go into a room, I'm like, I'm choosing to set the tone.
Yeah.
So motherfuckers can be ice grilling or feeling like however they want to feel. Like I can do that too, but that doesn't really align with who I am. Yeah. I get to choose love because I am love. Because we think us is like these tangible, like my man can fix a ladder or he can grill something, but your man wants to cry too, but you're not giving him room to.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, and so like we have to ask ourselves, how are we conditioned to believe in patriarchy as a means for liberation? Because it's not, but we've been conditioned to believe so because media gives it to us. You know what I'm saying? Society honestly gives it to us. And so the work for me was trying to unpack who I am. So I had to ask a lot of questions. I'm just curious by nature. I think part of that is I'm an artist. Yeah. But like if I'm curious about who I am, I'm also starting to get curious about the world and like what conditions have created this person and this self. Right? When we talk about Buddhism, we talk about self and this idea that we identify with a self that is not actually real. Self, this is like clothes. These clothes aren't even mine. Like literally,
they are now.
I mean, they are. You know what I'm saying? But like,
Lululemon stand up.
You know what I mean? But like, shout out to Ashley for the hookup. I'm just saying. But like, this is not who I am. This is like the vessel that's carrying me. And so I had to really do some deep digging about what do I want, what do I need, and what am I offering to the world, and what do I expect from the world in return.
I want to introduce you to my sister, my cozy co-host, Alicia Ferguson.
Moving into the wellness space, which has like brought me here, has been such a beautiful, beautiful journey. For me, it's really about cultivating community and really just like being well and being that representation that was missing in the wellness space for Black and brown folk.
Until I started my journey with Lululemon, I had never seen so many Black leaders in one space. Yeah. What was beautiful was not only was I seeing people that looked like me, but seeing people that came from complete diverse backgrounds that I could learn from. We can all keep rising. We can all keep growing together. And we don't have to feel like we're in competition with one another because they want us all. I am whole. I am perfectly created. I am a wonderfully unique individual. Every lesson I have learned, every risk I have taken, and every achievement I have made contributed to who I am. Because of that, I am whole.
And so me like navigating the duality of that and like, how do I honor this? And then how do I honor this? And how, like, where is there synergy that maybe people don't always get to see? And where is that crossover?
Alicia, I'm so excited about being here in this space with you, being able to align on so many different things. You know, we've talked a little bit about what's coming up and what we're going to share on this show and some of the ideas that we've had together in collaboration. And I think it's so beautiful that there's such a broad range of things that we want to touch on. And that excites me. Yes, the duality, right? When I think of duality, when I think of coexistence, I think of a whole human, right? We just picked that card of wholeness. I am whole. You are whole. You are whole. If you are watching at home, you are whole. Know that. Own that. I think about the fact that when we don't embrace it, we don't allow ourselves that sense of wholeness. And it's important that as human beings, we really allow ourselves to really feel it all. It's interesting because one of the things that we aligned on and that we talked about was what I was going through in the moment and what you had already experienced and navigated. And I want to talk a little bit about that. But what I found that when I started to share and be more vulnerable with my community, with my audience, and tell them how I was feeling, I found more people relating to that emotion that I would normally hide than what I've been sharing on a regular basis.
I love when you said just like the wholeness about us being human. And what came up for me is that even when we feel broken, like we're still whole. And so for me, with my partner, like we were together for 4 years and we built something beautiful and amazing and just like impactful for like Black people, but specifically like Black women, and just so many like things that we got to like tear down and barriers that we like push through. And just even from the standpoint of like being scrappy as like Black entrepreneurs, and we don't get the funding that we like so rightly deserve. deserve.
Yeah.
And we just had to like navigate and figure out. And so there's just intimacy that like grows. There's this like I lean on you, you lean on me. Like we're in this, we're doing this. Vision is clear. And then the vision started to get cloudy. And we're both like powerful individuals. And so it's okay that like her vision changed and maybe my vision changed and they didn't align anymore. But it's painful.
I can relate to so much of that, especially the sisterhood piece.
Yeah.
Right? Because you were like, she was like my sister. And she still is.
Yeah.
Like she still is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like let's be real about
Yeah.
that. When we dig into the depths of what sisterhood is, on the outside, people bond us together in a way that looks like this is perfection. But truthfully, and I say this in a lot of my classes, we're always aiming for progression. In our human evolution, it's all about progression as we grow physically, mentally, spiritually. And that happens in a sisterhood. We just don't always acknowledge it. So just as if my blood sisters, sometimes we don't see eye to eye.
Mm-hmm.
We be disagreeing left and right. Like, I'm like, girl, you wrong. And she's like, girl, you wrong. And then 10 seconds later, we're laughing, right? And I think that going back to that idea of rigidity that you talked about, like oftentimes we'll look at something and we're like, okay, this is the way it's supposed to go. And we put it in a box, right? And then we label it and we put all of these descriptive words on it that make it so palatable and presentable to the public, right? But ultimately, the duality of it all is that it's not always pretty and it's not always perfect. And sisterhood can be messy sometimes. And that's okay.
You're a healer and you're working to like build community and like be that for other people.
Yeah.
But then you're also going through it.
Yeah.
And so it's like still sitting with the duality of that too. And it's like, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to have it all together. You don't have to have like figured out. And knowing that even sharing that is like giving other people permission. We keep like having that conversation, but like not hiding it.
Yeah.
And letting people know like, yo, I hurt.
I think that was also, and I love you so much, by the way. I'm here with you.
Thank you.
Like, before we move on, I just want you to know that. Like, and we can sit in these moments together and feel what we feel and give each other the permission to feel and support each other in that and hold each other through that, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's the beauty of community. And as we dive deeper into that, as we reach into our bag and we pull out all of these incredible brothers and sisters that we're about to sit here and talk to, I think about that. And that to me like shapes the fullness of love. When we go into love, oftentimes blindly, with our whole hearts, we just hand over the whole set of keys.
Yeah.
And we're just like, here, you have access, full access. And I'm learning now that it's okay to hold some of those keys for yourself and not give them every key to every single door. I'm just so grateful. I'm grateful for you being here. I'm grateful for the people that have supported me, that have encouraged me, that have motivated me along the way. And it's been extremely important to me to continue to surround myself by those that value me, that see me, that hear me, that support me.
You know when Diana Ross says, I paid the cost to be the boss.
Yes.
I paid the cost to be the boss.
Oh, yes.
2022
Yes, ma'am.
showed me I paid the cost to be the boss.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a year of growth, a year of the kitchen sink had to fall apart in so many ways.
Yeah.
With, you know, you talk about duality. The kitchen sink had to fall apart in so many ways with my personal life, my professional life, really stepping into being a CEO. I have employees now. And just, you know, my mom's health was a little funny. Now she's great.
Yeah. And
just really, I don't want to say I was being tested. God was preparing me and is preparing me for the abundance and prosperity that's on the way.
Amen. Yeah.
Stand in that with you.
Yeah. And this card was definitely to remind me I am safe and I'm learning to trust myself.
Yeah.
I have a tendency to trust other people, but I don't necessarily trust myself.
Yeah.
And Dr. Akua told me, girl, trust yourself, you know.
That's good.
So thank you for this. And I have to say, it was Miss Pat. It was my mother. Because when we moved from the city, you know, I was, you know, with the black kids, you know, we were in there.
Yeah.
And then when we moved to the county, Chesterfield County, it was the first time I walked into a space, a school space. Not a, you know, I was used to being in the theater, being the only black person. But it was the first time I walked into a classroom and they all looked at me. I was like, oh, am I supposed to be here? They looked at me like, who is she? Who is she?
It says I'm supposed to be here.
You know? And I walk in, and I remember, like, kids were whispering. You know, I'm Generation X. I'm like right at the end.
Yeah.
And, and the black kids were in there, and they're like, "Who's the new girl?" And I'm in there, and I'll never forget. They said they had SCA representative in your class, right? And no one was raising their hand. Barbara Kumpf raised her hand. Shout out to Barbara Kumpf.
Wherever you're at, Barbara.
And I raised my hand, and everybody was like, "Who's she?" And I just raised my hand because my mom was, I was so used to being the first, and I was, just to raise your hand.
Yeah.
And I remember I lost, and it was like, okay, never lost again. Anyway, that's a whole other story. But being in that space, it was my mom, because when I first moved there, remember I told you about the authentic thing? It was like white kids were kind of like, well, who is she? And then, I was smart, so I was in the top classes, and it was only a few of us in there. And the black kids would say that, I hate that shit. She want to be white and all this stuff. And I'm like, come on, I know y'all. I know every
the
black
way you sound
has
like,
already, and because I was friends with the white kids because they were in my class, and so I got that. And then ended up being a cheerleader. I was one of the only black girls on the cheerleading squad in middle school, but it was funny when I became a cheerleader. The white kids started to like me. But let me tell you what happened. When I started running track, the black kids were like, "Oh, well, who is this?" And it's sad to say that it was my talent that made people open their eyes, young kids open their eyes to see, well, let's see what she's about. Let's invite Nikki to the slumber party.
Yeah.
And you go to the slumber party and everybody goes, "Oh, you're so nice, you're so cool. I thought you were this." And I was like, I'm just me. I exude joy. I do this, I do that. And I do have to say, and I hate to say it, but it was almost like my talent was the thing that got my peers' attention to get to know who I was.
Yeah.
And when I look back, it's kind of sad.
Yeah.
I couldn't, as kids, I couldn't just walk in and be me.
Yeah.
And it was the fact that I was this cheerleader, and I could sing, and I could dance, and then I beat your ass on the track, and, it was like everybody was like, "Oh, well, let's see what she's about." Hey. And then when they got to see who I was about, it was that. So that's some of the things that I had to navigate in that space.
Yeah.
And then, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, it sounds like a maturity thing though, because like you might have been more mature than your peers, because sometimes if you're not mature enough, you have to like give people an intro, and then it's like, but then this is the real meat behind it. So I'm gonna show up with this like fun, frilly thing that you are attracted to, and then this is like the opportunity to show people who you really are.
Yeah.
And so you just might have been. It sounds like your mom did an amazing job raising you.
Yeah.
She was amazing, because I would go home and be like, "They don't like me." Like, the white kids don't like me. The black kids don't like me. And one day they all started to like me, and I was like, "Whoa!" But Mom was really great. And I don't know if that was the educator in her. And she would really instill in me, why am I about to cry?
No, talking let it out though. We are not holding back today.
Instill in me, you is smart, you is kind. Like she would really say that to me. And really, and being a little brown girl in Richmond, Virginia, in Chesterfield County, she really would, I give my hat off to Miss freaking Pat and my aunts and my grandmother. They were my first girlfriends, my first playmates. And I really came from a strong group of women, and I watched these women compliment each other every day. I watched them affirm each other every day. So when I walked into this school and people were looking at me funny, I was like, well, what? But then it shifted. I ended up being that, once people got to know me, I ended up being that person that would affirm people and love on people, because that's what I came from. And it escalated. It ended up going into high school. I was the first black girl to be the homecoming and prom queen in the history of my school that's been built since 1920s. And it was, I didn't realize this until I got inducted into my High School Hall of Fame years.
Shout outs to that. Don't just breeze over that one.
As an adult and being at an age where, I could be a parent, I was kind of like, they were naming what I did. And I was like, okay, you're right. And it wasn't till then where I realized why the teachers and why the people like really saw something special in me until I read that. I was I got this award in high school called the Distinguished Lancer.
Yeah.
And it usually goes to someone that's like in the top 3 of the class. And I wasn't in the top 3, but I was up there, you know, in the top 3. But it came to me, and my principal said that I was a big part of integrating the activities.
Wow.
I was like the first Black girl in some of the activities, what made my other Black girlfriends go, well, I can do this. So by the time I'm a senior in high school, whereas it used to just be one of us on the cheerleading squad, it's 6 of us.
Yes.
You know, where it was just one person in the show choir group, it's 15 of us, you know, the guys and the girls. And so they said that I had a big part in that. And I didn't see it at the time until I became older. And I was just, and all I was doing was being me.
Yes. That's the words that came to me.
After what I wanted and having a mom that was ushering me to do what I want since I was a little girl.
Right. Your real purpose is like breaking these barriers. Like you've pioneered since you were like 7 years old. Like that is, that's what I'm hearing.
Yes.
And I think that's insane. You were doing it before you even knew what you were doing. It was just like in your heart and you were just leading with that. And like, I keep hearing your mom just kind of like gave you this like endless possibility where you didn't have a ceiling or a floor.
I didn't.
Like that didn't exist to you. So when you had an idea, like your mom, your aunties, your family, like they kept affirming, like, yes, you can. You can do all these things. And so in the midst of like predominantly white institutions and schools and like, that can be really intimidating.
Yeah.
Especially as a child.
Yeah.
Like, and if you're the first integrating it, it's like, I want to be first. Come on, there's someone that looks like me. And you're just in there raising your hand because you're not even thinking like that there's, like it should be anything else but that.
Yeah.
And I think that's so special. And when I keep seeing how you shine right now, we were having this conversation.
Yeah, we were.
I was like, we've had these shared experiences of like having these big bright lights and people are like, oh, you're so bold and you do these things. And it's like, I don't think we were raised with the ceiling or the floor because our parents instilled that in us. Like, you're beautiful. You're amazing. You're wonderful. You're divinely created, right? Like purpose is inside of you.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't necessarily the affirmations from the world. It's like, I got that at home first.
Yeah.
Like I was nurtured by, like I knew who I was.
Yeah.
So when I was able to step into these other atmospheres, like we carried that with us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like when we like all the things that we labeled about you, these like gifts and talents, like that's courage.
Yes.
And you were doing it before. Like times have changed a little bit now where like there's more representation. So it's easier to see yourself in spaces and know that it's possible.
Yep.
But like it wasn't. Like you were the first to like open up some of these spaces for us to know that it's possible.
At nighttime, I will always run at night, right? And I mean, on my own. And I've been stopped by the cops numerous times to the point where if I didn't get stopped by cops, something's not right. That's how often I got stopped by the cops. So whenever I would talk to someone about this or people, I could tell it was going in one ear right out the other.
Yeah.
Oh, this motherfucker, what does he know? Oh, sorry for cursing, but.
No, good. Be you.
It's welcome.
Coffee.
Like this person, what does he know? He's just talking, that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And then when the world got shut down, and they put that on TV, that's when everybody started noticing what had occurred. In the running space is strictly white. No offense to them, but it's strictly white. Now they see everything that we was talking about. And when I say we, I mean, I wasn't the only Black person that was trying to bring attention to this thing. So being that there was no type of knowledge there, I just felt like, okay, what can I do to bring this to light? Because now we're seeing it in broad daylight as opposed to just nighttime.
Yeah.
So I hit up a friend of mine, told him what I was doing to see what he would have to say about it. And he was like, Coffey, I thought I was only going to be bringing out 40 to 60 people. He's like, Coffey, you're going, I don't think you realize who you are in the running space. And I'm like, nah, I'm not any of that. And when I put it out, I reached another friend of mine who's a part of Define, who does the graphics. And I was like, Chris, I need this for running the protest, and I'm going to put it out there on social. The minute that he created it and sent it my way and I put it on social, it took off. And when I say it took off so much that there was a site already called Justice for George. I don't know if y'all, and they put it on their handle as well. And the cops got in contact with the park commissioner at the time in hopes that, you know, he would shut it down or whatnot. And I got in contact with the park commissioner in hopes that he would allow me to use whatever park that I chose to use.
Yeah.
Now, I put this park on the flyer, the amphitheater, without his permission.
Now,
No, the one that's in, LES, but
okay.
they just ripped it down.
Okay.
It no longer stands. And the cops was trying to get that to be shut down.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, 1,000 people showed up to that.
Woo.
Thousands.
The impact. It's the impact.
Yeah, the impact of that. And I had us to wear, like, everyone to wear white t-shirts or something white. And I did that strictly off the fact that, you know, I say I'm from North Carolina, but a lot of things I learned more about us at home than I did in the school system.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew that the very first march that occurred about African Americans being killed here in New York on Fifth Avenue was 1917. And they all wore white. So I had everyone to wear white to pay homage to them because they was going through the exact same thing that we're going through today. What I noticed from Dr. Cornel West, the minute that I met him, we're the same as far as introducing ourselves, but there was one thing that he kept doing where I was like, oh, that's dope. He kept opening the doors for everyone. He would be the last person, regardless on who it is. And that's such an old school thing where it reminded me of my grandparents. And I was like, oh, I need to start doing that as well. Like, cause I'm an older Black man now, but I'm seeing someone on a whole totally different level do this for strangers where his wife walks through, I walk through. Regardless on who you are, you're going to walk through as if he's the security blanket. He's going to make sure that you get through these doors A-okay because that's the generation that he's from. You know, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, the Muhammad Ali, the Malcolm X eras, you know, he was in those spaces.
Yeah.
And while talking to him, we had a one-on-one conversation for a masterclass. I was the one that was interviewing him, like, how you all doing me now? And I was like, I felt like I was a student. Like everything that I asked him, I knew that he would answer the questions. And I also knew that he was going to overlap and answer like 3 or 4 questions from this one question. And that was the beauty of it. And then to me, I've always, before I even met him, I've always said that me and a couple other people, you can look at Dr. Cornel West and you see how his hand gestures, it's like a rapper. And the best hand gesture guy in the game to me was always Redman. And he reminded me of Redman because every time he talks, he doesn't just speaks from his mouth, his hand speaks for him as well. And I admire that so much. I'm somewhat similar, but not as much as he is. And for someone to be on that level that he's on, I felt like, oh my God, like this is something that I wish I could have a conversation with my grandparents because they would be stoked because I had to talk about him, I think in high school. We're talking about high school. And of course, Malcolm X and everyone else. But he was one, and at times at growing up, I would be like, why when I have to do a research paper in school, I have to do one about our ancestors as well. Didn't understand it. Oh, I understand it a lot now.
Yeah.
As I got older and became more wiser, I became very thankful because now whatever it is that someone wants to talk to me about that deals with Black history, oh, I learned this from North Carolina. Not in school. I learned this from Route 1, Box 34, Aurora, North Carolina. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's where my school teachings and blessings came from when it comes to Black history?
I feel like it's always changing. Like when and it's something that I've always kind of struggled with because, you know, growing up, I identified as an athlete because I identified myself and my self-worth and everything that I was and was about with the sport that I was participating in. So if that was basketball, football, track, skateboarding, like, oh yeah, I'm a skateboarder when I was in middle school. In high school, I'm like, oh, I'm a football player because I excelled in it. And I thought it was, and everyone thought it was cool that I was a football player. So I'm like, yeah, I'm a football player.
Yeah.
And then I go to college and I'm a collegiate football player. And then after college, you know, I played in the NFL for a little bit. So now I'm an NFL guy. And when that all went away, that's when I first had to ask myself who I was. So like, it's like a long-winded answer to get back to your question. Like, how do you identify yourself? Like, I'm still figuring that out. Like, I think every day I'm trying to figure out who I am. But the thing that grounds me most is like I am like God's child. So before anything, like that's who I am. And like, that's how I like want to represent myself. So when I come to any room, it's like, yo, this is Matt. Like, he's a man of God. And like so that is like the only thing that's ever grounded me. Like, football didn't sustain who I was and who I am. Nothing else has except for that. So like, that's how I like to identify myself. But like, I don't come in the room like, yo, like I'm a man of God. Like, what's happening?
Kick down the door.
Holy war over here.
Right. It's just more so like I just want that peace about myself when I come to a place and like, we could be talking about anything and I just try to relate to whoever I'm talking to and meet them where they're at. But I would say like a brother, a son, being from the South, and this is just my experience. I'm not speaking for anybody else, but like I grew up in a single parent home and a lot of the kids in my neighborhood and my surroundings at my school and in my community had similar upbringings. It's like a single parent mom raising a bunch of kids. And I feel like when in the South, that's your like family structure. A lot of that discipline comes from the church and a lot of that structure comes from the church. And it was something that my mom relied on heavily and in part, like it became my life and my brother's life. So growing up in the church had a lot of to do with my upbringing and a lot of the discipline and the time I spent on the weekend.
You know, in my household, my father played the role of the typical masculine Black man. My father was he served in the military. So all of the things that would visually make a man a man.
The ideal.
Pants up. My father was born in 1945, so it very pants up to here.
Reese's jeans.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like shining shoes, all that stuff. And so but he was not a good dad. My father was he was very abusive. And so there's only so much that performance holds up. And I think as a child, I always questioned, well, then what does this actually mean? Because I'm being told I have to be like this. And this is how you get respect. But my mother is the one who's running the show, really. And I feel like a lot of Black women experience that where like they have to, you know, play a role in order to keep the aesthetic of what a Black family is, what a man and a woman is in this household, what femininity and masculinity looks like as a unit. But when you look behind the scenes, when you uncover what's really happening, it's a lot of Black women who are really the ones who are in the trenches, taking care of the kids, paying the bills, yada, yada. And there are many reasons for all those things, but we have to talk about it. And so when, you know, the man in the barbershop was talking, it kind of brought up all those things. It was like, okay, what is it about femininity that automatically means that your sons cannot be men? And then what does it mean to be a man for you? Does that mean strength? Because my mother's strong. Does that mean powerful? Because my mother's powerful. This is how I see things. And then because before you even get to queerness or gayness or homosexuality, any of those things, before you even touch that, what you're looking at is basic concepts of powerful, not powerful. Is this a resource? It's not a resource. And that doesn't even talk about queerness yet. It's just, I'm raising you to be a man. And the energy of femininity is not powerful. And as a man, you need to be powerful. So you can't be feminine. What is Black? Where are these men who and what are the expectations of Blackness, and how does that sync up or intersect or even synchronize with masculinity? And in the United States, I can speak for here at the very least, that means that some people expect you to be aggressive. Some people expect for you to be physically dominant, not necessarily intelligent, or intellectual. And so a lot of the things are negative, right? But then there's also like some potential positives, right? A coolness that comes with being a Black man. Like, even if I don't feel that cool, all I have to do is like, wear, a bucket hat, and all of a sudden
there's an assumed coolness.
People assume that you're cool. So it's like, I'll take that. Yeah. I'll take that I'm cool. And so I think those are the kind of things, but that also changes depending on the society that you're in. What is Black masculinity in Ghana? I noticed that some things are similar. A lot of things are similar, but some things are different. In Ghana, maybe, or in another country, I'm speculating, maybe, for two men to hold hands is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Maybe you can be more affectionate, somewhere else versus, or even just in the United States, from city to city, how people express, how we dress. It varies. Am I alone? Like, is my family dynamic, the ways I grew up, the way I see the world, is it just me that's feeling these things? Like, what are other people really experiencing? And so tapping into their family stories and me going, okay, so it's not just me. So you also got you talk like a white boy, or you also got this, and then when you start bridging those connections, I think what's powerful is that then it doesn't really matter if you, you feel like I'm a hotep, or you feel like, oh, this one is queer, or you feel like, well, you sir and you ma'am are all experiencing the same things. And so going back to empathy, I want you guys to look at each other. So for an hour, you have to sit down and look at each other.
I didn't know growing up that not everyone was queer.
Elaborate on that.
Okay, so first and foremost, my queerness is, I don't just see it as like who I love and how I love. It's just like, it's my politic. Like, it's just how I move through the world. If there's a status quo, I'm going to try and challenge it because, why not? And, if people are saying left, I'm going to question, why can't we go right? And I think in a world that is very much so built on boxes, I just don't really fit in many, or at least if I'm put in one, I challenge myself to like step outside of it and see what that discomfort, what's going on there.
Yeah.
And so when I was younger, I was always told, like my dad would always tell me, dare to be different. Like you can swim against the current. You don't have to follow the crowd. And I was like, great, because I naturally don't. Granted, I don't think they knew how deep it went.
They didn't know what they were saying.
Know.
They gave you that advice.
But I when it came to like who I would have a crush on, their gender was something that came like 10 steps down the line. I'd be like, oh my God, that's such a beautiful person. Oh, I love their energy. And then they identify as this.
Yeah.
And I thought everyone loved everyone. But the only reason why a man would be with a woman is because you have to have kids. Like, that's what I thought.
Wow.
So in my mind, I didn't understand why it was such a bad thing, because not everyone wants kids, but also like, if I feel these things, why can't I explore it? But I was also raised Roman Catholic, and we grew up in the Middle East, and my parents are very big on, okay, we moved from London to Saudi, and Nigeria has more Muslims than Christians. And so like being around Abrahamic faiths wasn't new to me. And I think part of my parents wanting me to be rooted in an identity was, you are Catholic no matter where you are Nigerian no matter where you are, and these are your ideals. And so I was like, okay, that's what I am. But how I felt didn't always align with who they told me I was, but they were telling me who I was. And so I just thought that I had to adhere to these things that I was told. And it wasn't until I came to America, honestly, and I had a crush on a girl, and I was fighting myself. And one of my friends was like, you know, you can have a crush on a girl. No one had ever told me you can.
No one.
No one had ever told me
And at this point, you were in college?
I was 18.
Okay.
In high school, I had a crush on a girl, and
Yeah.
then one of my friends started dating her. And
A guy friend?
no.
Another girlfriend?
Another girl.
Okay,
and
so then you were like, she's off the market.
No, I was like, you can't be with a girl. Like, you're not allowed to do that.
Oh, you were fighting
Yeah.
against it,
And she was
even though
like-
you had a crush on her.
Yeah. And she was
Okay.
like, why not? And I was like, because it's wrong. And she was like, according to who? And I was like, that's what, like, I'm just regurgitating stuff.
Yeah.
And I didn't not support it. Like, I loved to see her happy. And then I came to college, and I was put in an English as a second language course because I came from Nigeria.
Yeah.
And I had to write an essay. And the essay I wrote was on how gay couples shouldn't be allowed to adopt. And I wrote it with my full chest. I was like,
Do you still have this paper?
maybe.
Totes.
I haven't looked for it in years.
You should go back and read it. Because like younger you wrote this.
Yeah, and I wrote it with my full chest, 10 toes down, and someone wrote their essay in response to me and just ripped me to shreds.
Oh my God.
And
Did it shift your perspective?
Yeah, it did, because I didn't believe what I was writing, but that's what I was built on.
Yeah.
And that's the person who was like, Tochi, you're allowed to have a crush on this girl, by the way. And that was who I dated for a long time, this girl that I had a crush on. And then I went through a period of where I had to figure out, like, okay, do I like this girl? Or, like, is it her? Or is it me? Like, do I like her? Or am I actually a fluid person? Because I'd never given myself permission to
be.
To, like, explore fully. I came from being homophobic to having a crush on a girl, given permission to.
That's so wild to me that you were ever homophobic.
Oh, it was bad. I was very homophobic. Extremely. Wow. The internalized homophobia ran very, very deep. It was
But it was instilled
deep.
in you. It wasn't necessarily something that came from within. Like your belief system was coming from the Roman Catholic Church, was coming from your Nigerian background, was coming from the ideas that your parents and the elders in your family placed on you.
Yes.
So it wasn't you getting to make that choice on your own.
No, which I think, when I think about what it means to be like Nigerian and queer, some of it feels like I'm betraying everything I was taught. Because a lot of the times, like, I'll be told, you forgot your culture, you forgot your tradition, America has changed you, America's corrupted you, look what you've allowed America to do to you. And in my mind, I'm thinking, America gave me the space to be myself. America didn't put me in a box and say I had to stick in it. I was also sent here to get an education. Yeah. And that education gave me insight into a level of freedom that a lot of people don't have. Even just like being able to wear what you want. Yeah. Not even in your sexuality, but just being able to express yourself in a way that feels in alignment with you. And if that is seen as corruption, I don't care how anyone sees it anymore. Yeah. I don't care. You can see if you think I've forgotten my culture and tradition, then you know what? You can take that up
Think what you want.
Whoever you need to take that up with. Yeah. But Nigerian culture or Igbo culture, because I'm Igbo, let me speak for Igbo culture, is very queer. Yeah. Not necessarily like in sexuality, but language drives culture. And in Igbo, we don't have a he or she pronoun. It's just one. It's just all. And that plays a large part in how we navigate culture. But then Christianity came and colonialism came and started to define things and try to translate a lot of things in Igbo into English that cannot be translated, that cannot be gendered, but then was given a gender. And now we've just run with it. And I'm just not. You know, like I was raised in the Catholic Church. Yeah. And then my church, I had I was a leader in my church. Yeah. And then they found out that I wasn't straight. And then they let me go at the drop of a hat. Like they completely disposed of me.
You were like
Yeah, no, they
exiled.
told me, no, you can't.
Really?
I was told actually like, are you sure you want to do this? I'm like, you're asking me about my sexuality. Like I can change it, like my skin color. Like I can't. Yeah. Also, truly, like being queer is not easy. Like there have been so many periods in my life where I'm like, why can't I just move through the world in a box that is palatable. Like that would make my life so much easier.
But like also who says it's not palatable? Like that's what
a lot of the world says it's not palatable.
Yes.
And I know where you're going with that, which is the stance that I take now. It's like I'm just gonna live my life.
I am an anxious, overthinking, autistic entrepreneur who is a husband and a father. And so the opportunities to realize where I fucked up at throughout my day, throughout any day, are boundless. Right now, even just with the work that I do, the markets are crazy right now. People are not looking for Black writers and curators and content creators the way they were in 2020. So there are so many more opportunities to read into what I'm doing and almost get caught in paralysis. And as somebody who is extremely sensitive and just feels, I feel everything sometimes.
You identify as the HSP?
I do.
Shout out to
So do we.
I feel it. Yeah. There are so many opportunities that I have to be paralyzed and to not get anything done, to not share anything with anybody for a week, to not put any more content up, to not send any more pitches. But I've gotten myself to a space where I'm a lot more quick to say, okay, this is hard. I'm going to drink my soda, watch my YouTube. I'm going to watch Wild 'N Out for half an hour. I'm going to call my wife or spend time with Ada. And then I'm going to get back to it. So allowing myself just to totally disconnect, to feel what I feel, to be, again, frustrated, sad, upset, whatever else, and then to move forward. And I think when I move forward, that kind of leads into another life principle that I picked up from James Clear, who everybody on every podcast talks about at some point with Atomic Habits, where he says that, and I love how he laid it out, that every action you take is a vote for the type of person you're going to become. And so it's like, I don't need a perfect day or a perfect week. Presidents get elected to office with like 49% sometimes. You know? It is just about doing the best with the opportunities that I have right now and allowing what I circle back to, what I recommit to, and what I care enough to bring myself back to shape who I am and who I show up as. I trust myself to acknowledge and process my difficult emotions and inconvenient truths. I know that being honest with myself is a liberatory act, even when it's difficult. And the intent behind that is to not only encourage us to see that we can be honest with how we feel in any situation, but that it's a great thing to do. Even when it's hard, even when it's uncomfortable, being honest with yourself is what allows you to attract what's ultimately in alignment with who you are. People don't know how dope you are, how real you are, what you stand for, what you believe in, what you care about, if you don't talk about it and act on it. And I think even when, we have tension and conflict because of us speaking our truth, that's so much better than living a life that's out of alignment with who we're meant to be. But there's nothing that can replace finding your real people because you were real with yourself.
If you have enjoyed this episode of Dose of Duality, please do us a favor. Like, share with the homie, and subscribe. We love hearing your feedback, and trust us, we respond to everything.
Sure do. And don't forget to rate and review this podcast. Come back again next week for another Dose of Duality.